Hello, this is Greg Holcomb with the VRMA, and I'm here with Matt Kiessling, the Vice President of Short-Term Rental Policy at the Travel Technology Association, and we're going to be discussing connecting with policymakers. So Matt, as your alliance is formed and growing, you're engaging other stakeholders, what do you recommend that the alliances do to connect with their policymakers?
Sure. So I think really what you want to start with is, as a group, you want to start reaching out to members of your city council or your local state legislator, whoever you're talking to about short-term rental regulation, and you want to try to open up an open dialogue about what you're seeing, why you think this is important, what your concerns are with whatever the proposals are that are on the table or are actually being discussed in these meetings, and try to have a very frank kind of one-on-one discussion with these folks. You're sort of taking the temperature. You want to know where they sit on the issue. Are short-term rentals something that they have big concerns about? Is it something that they're very supportive of, or is it something that they really just don't know about and need to be educated? I mean, more often than not, that's where you're going to find most policymakers sit on this issue. Is a lot of them just don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of knowledge about what the short-term rental industry is, how it works, who's participating in it. And so taking their initial temperature on the issue and getting an idea of how they feel about it is important from the outset. Then, I always think one-on-one meetings are better. There are less voices that are sort of clouding the issue. If you can get one-on-ones with city council members, with a group member or two, once you formed your alliance. What you don't want to do is ask to get a meeting with your city council member and then have 10 folks sitting around the table shooting questions at them or sort of causing mass chaos. You want a couple folks. And then, maybe you offer an invitation for them to come talk to your group. If they do have questions about the short-term rental industry, or they do have questions about what you're doing, you want to say, we meet every couple of weeks, or we meet once a month. Would you be willing to come to a meeting? Open that invitation and say, would you be willing to come talk to us about what you think the concerns are in the community and how we can maybe address some of those concerns? Answer questions about how you're approaching this from a policy perspective, and you and your colleagues are thinking about working on this issue. And really just make sure that line of communication is open. And then when you do find folks who are on your side, who are champions for you and the short-term rental industry, you really want to foster that relationship, and you want to help provide them whatever tools they think are going to be necessary to carry forth with a decision that's going to result in fair and reasonable regulation. If they're saying the economic impact numbers matter, you want to figure out how you and the other members of your alliance can pull together the economic impact numbers that they're looking for, the average night stay numbers that they're looking for, testimonials from folks who stayed in short-term rentals and visit the community because they have the ability to stay in a short-term rental. All those different things may be important to different policymakers, and so just being amenable to their requests and being able to give them the tools that they need to go forth and be a champion for you is a big piece of it, I think.
Okay. Other than the economic impact numbers, is there any other type of information you find important to share?
Well, I do think there's other information that's important to share. We've talked about economic impact numbers. We've talked about average night stays and tax revenue and all of these other things that are pretty easy to pull together for a local group that's kind of gotten itself organized. But I think what gets lost a lot of times are the stories, the anecdotes. One of the things that we always advise groups to do is rely on the data. But I think it's also important to be realistic and understand that the other side, a lot of times when there is a group of angry neighbors, they're not always going to rely on the data. There's going to be a lot of emotion, and it's going to be sort of heavily charged, and that's a tough environment a lot of times for a local city council member or a local policymaker to deal with, because they're going to have to deal with neighbors on both sides of the aisle, right? And so you want to make sure that you also have personal stories attached to some of that data. And so whether you're taking little videos of travelers that have come to your town and have utilized your short-term rental for the last 5 ski seasons or 5 beach seasons or whatever the case may be, you want to make sure that you can speak to it on a personal level as well. beyond just the data, so that you can give both sides of that argument, because you know that it's largely going to be anecdotal and emotionally charged from the other side. You want to have both pieces to bring to the table, I think, as part of your discussion and part of your argument for why short-term rentals, deserve a fair shake in your town.
Great. Well, thank you very much. This has been Matt Kiessling with the Travel Technology Association, discussing connecting with policymakers.